Now, Russia has recorded just over 10,000 new COVID-19 cases in the past 24 hours. It's the third consecutive day when new cases have been above 10. India has recorded its biggest daily jump in the number of coronavirus cases and fatalities. Health officials said there were nearly 4,000 new cases of the virus and about 200 deaths in the past 24 hours. The largest spike came in the western states, particularly India's richest, actually. Here's the BBC's Divya Arya. There are warnings of a growing gap between disadvantaged pupils and those from wealthier families because of school closures. With no set date for reopening schools in the UK, charities and head teachers are worried about the long-term implications for the most vulnerable children. John Owen has this. Let's talk now to the Education Minister for Wales, Kirsty. Some more messages from you about how you're feeling about the prospect of sending your children back to school. Karen says only if social distancing measures can be put in place. She's in year 6, so I would like her to go back for at least a few weeks to have some closure. That's the last year of primary school in the UK, but not the whole class back, no. Karen Burnett says no. Scottish schools finish for summer holidays end of June. No point in rushing to get them back for a month. My 7-year-old wouldn't cope with that either. Need a very clear plan of how this will be done. Not a rush job when health is at risk. Yes, says Keith Jackson. As key workers, our children currently go 2 days a week to school, but I'm happy for them to go back full time. And one more for now. Elizabeth says, I'm a midday assistant and I'm still going into school for key workers' children, and there is no social distancing. But there is lots of hand washing. And Lucy, yes, I'd like my child to go back. I have a child with autism and it's really tough for him. Thank you for those. Through the day here on BBC News, we're focusing really on coverage of how the epidemic has affected you if you're a school pupil and you can't. Hello, this is BBC News on Victoria, Derbyshire. Here are the headlines. The Parliamentary Health Select Committee in the UK is examining the scientific evidence given to the British government on the lockdown and the impact of the virus in the UK. They're talking to Dr. Jenny Harris. She's questioned by the chair of the Parliamentary Health Select Committee, Jeremy Hunt. Really interesting what she was saying, particularly for UK viewers. In this country, as you know, we stopped community testing middle of March. Jenny Harris saying, if we had unlimited testing capacity and ongoing support, then perhaps we'd have chosen a slightly different approach, i.e. we might have carried on that community testing as opposed to, at that point, when we moved from containment to delay, prioritising testing of people in hospitals. Being questioned, as I said, by Jeremy Hunt, who is a former health secretary, as you know. France has reached the grim milestone of over 25,000 coronavirus deaths as its government defends plans for easing a lockdown. Next Monday, some French schools are due to reopen. And this is on the instruction of President Emmanuel Macron, who's gone against the advice of his government's scientific committee. Other governments in Denmark, Norway, Ireland and here in the UK have kept most schools closed because of the risks of spreading the virus. I'm going to speak now to a mum in France who's getting ready to send her 2 girls back to school. And Rachel Beattie Riddell, thank you for talking to us and good luck. Thank you, mum of 2 and a professor of international studies. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has taken part via video link in a coronavirus meeting of the Australian Cabinet, where they discussed restoring travel between the 2 countries. Miss Ardern told journalists there would be no open borders with the rest of the world for some time to come, but they were looking at whether they could establish something between New Zealand and Australia, a kind of travel bubble. Under the proposal, movement between the 2 countries will be permitted without a 2-week quarantine period. The Irish airline Aer Lingus says it's reviewing procedures on its Belfast to London flights following a claim that it is not observing social distancing. There are calls for funeral services to resume in churches. America's film and TV industry has been hit hard by the virus lockdowns, with production effectively coming to a halt. Many studios are now hoping to reopen at the earliest opportunity, but the demands of their industry mean that may not be straightforward. Our correspondent in Los Angeles, Sophie Long, has this. And you're watching BBC News. Next with you in a few minutes will be Joanna. Before that, let's bring you the weather. Here's Matt.